pray. God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. I recently came across a quote that I really liked. It said, dreams are like potato chips. You should hold on to them, but not too tightly or they'll get crushed. So I was thinking about that as I thought about the first part of what I'm going to be talking about throughout Lent, and that's give up. So I'm going to be talking about give up and take up. But right now, I'm going to talk about give up. And I think that's an evocative title, give up. I'm not telling you to give up. I'm telling you to have discernment about when to give up. So the type of giving up that I'm talking about is not to quit in the face of struggle. I'm not telling you don't persevere when times get tough. But there are certain things that we're holding on to too tightly that we would do really well to let go, surrender, give up a little bit. The gospel lesson this morning is an example of holding on to something too tightly. So Peter, the disciple, was holding on really tightly to the idea of a Messiah that he had in mind. So he was coming to see with faith that Jesus was the Messiah. But in Peter's mind, Messiah was not someone who was going to end up suffering and dying on a cross. The cross was a tool of the Roman Empire to basically terrorize the population. It was a horrible thing. So Peter and Jesus would have grown up seeing thousands of people crucified on the roadsides, right, as a sign to people to stay in their place, as a reminder that the Roman Empire had a great deal of might, and that they were in charge, and that you needed to just do what they said, or you would end up like this. And so it can be hard. We think about the cross. We grow up maybe looking at it. We wear a cross on a necklace, as a nice piece of jewelry. So it takes some effort sometimes to remember what that really would have meant when Jesus talked about his destiny as the cross. It was really a symbol of the worst thing that could happen to someone, the worst kind of suffering, the worst kind of shame. So when Jesus started to tell the disciples that if they continued on the way that they were going, that they were going to be enough of a threat to the powers that be, enough of a threat to the Roman Empire, that Jesus could end up on a cross. The disciples did not want to hear that at all. Right? They wanted a Messiah who would just overthrow the Roman Empire. And they're starting to hold on to that vision very tightly. And so that's why Jesus even calls Peter Satan. It's really tempting to hold on to your idea of how things should be. Don't do it. So I want you to think about something that you're concerned about, something that's bothering you. And just take a minute. You can even make fists if you want. Sometimes I do stuff like that. And if I'm doing something physically, it kind of helps me understand it in a deeper level. So just sit for a moment, close your eyes, and if you want to, just make some fists. Okay. And think about something that you're really, really, really attached to. Something that you think you really need, that someone else really needs. And the first thing I want to say is that your attachment to this is a good thing. It's probably coming from a good instinct. We all have instincts for self-preservation. So if we're feeling threatened or worried, those instincts are really going to kick in strongly, and that's good. You know, it's helped the human race survive for as long as we have. But that level of self-preservation is not always appropriate to the situation at hand. And sometimes it can cloud our thinking. And sometimes it can take the place of God for us. We can become so attached to the outcome that we think is right, the answer that we think is the right answer, that thing that we think we need, that it clouds our vision and keeps us from seeing God. So what I want you to do is just keep the fist for a while and be grateful that you have those instincts for self-preservation. But now just take a moment, and when you're ready, if you're ready, open your hands. You might not be ready to right now, it's okay. But if you are, just open your hands. And pray that God will guide you to let go of whatever you need to let go of. You might not even know what that is in this moment. You probably don't. But right now, in this act of prayer, this act of asking God for guidance, God will hear your prayer and God will show you. In God's time, in God's way. And if your eyes have been closed, you can open them now if you want. And look at your open hands. Think about what I was demonstrating with the children. You know, all the things that we can do when we open up our hands. The joy that comes from sharing and from giving. And so I want to invite you too. I was telling the kids about it, but you should all have an insert in your bulletin. It's giving from abundance. I haven't even started this one yet in our own home because like the last couple weeks our cash flow has been tricky. Like, this is just a particular time when the cash flow is very tight, and so I was kind of afraid to start this. It's a great example, you know, of holding on way too tightly, and it was keeping me from knowing really the joy that comes from giving and the gratitude that's connected to giving. Because the act of giving to someone else can really stir up a deep gratitude in us that we're able to give. That no matter what our situation is, we always have something we can give to someone else. So I invite you to do, as the cover of the bulletin says this week, give up excess. Let's look at ways that we have too much in our lives. And ways that we can share what we have with so many across the world who have so very little. And in doing that, we will find the joy that comes from surrender. And that's good news.